Welcome to the Empowered Team podcast. I am your host, Kari Schneider, and I am so excited to have our new guest today. It is Erika Sinner. And Erika, she is so multi-talented. We're talking about a multi-8-figure founder for the company Directory. She's the CEO of that company, but that does not stop there. She's done so many things. She's done some really cool things with a company called Tiny Superheroes. When it comes to pets and animals, she's got the goods. She knows all the things. And at the same time, she's a best-selling author of a book called Pets Are Family. I don't know if everybody knows this, but you've probably seen or heard my dogs and me talk about my dogs all over the place. So I'm so excited to pick your brain, Erika. Can you lead us in? I'm not doing your bio any justice. Can you lead us in by telling us a little more about Directory first, and then we're just going to go into all the things. Tell us.
I love it. Yes. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here. I'm excited for today's conversation. I've been in the life sciences biotech space for the last 20 years. I used to work within pharmaceutical organizations, helping medicines come to market on the commercial team. And in the last 7 years, I founded Directory. And what we do is we help small to mid-sized pharmaceutical companies commercialize. And so a lot of people don't know is every year 200 or over 2,500 new drug applications go into the FDA, and only about 20 to 25 are approved. And so for each of those companies that either get, hey, we need more information, or we have questions about manufacturing, they go into cash preservation mode. And what that means for organizations is they usually let go of all of their employees, and then they have to bring them back in as they resubmit to the FDA. So what we do at Directory is we come in as commercial teams. We're a statement of work. So there isn't, a lot of individuals who are let go. Like, our employees can actually give their best, knowing that it doesn't matter what happens with the FDA. If they need more time, they will still have a job. They'll still have a role, which gives a lot of these small to mid-sized companies access to really top talent in their commercialization efforts.
Okay, so this is really interesting because I'm absorbing. I'm trying to hear everything that you're talking about. First of all, there's this concept of all these people trying to get something approved from the FDA.
Yes.
It's really just a tiny fraction getting through the FDA.
Yes.
But then it's like this mass slaughter because whoever gets through, it's like, well, now we've got to actually scale.
Go. Yeah.
We have to produce. We have to make
Yes.
it happen. And then there's this exodus, or not even an exodus, a firing is the release of people because the resources aren't there.
That's right.
And so I'm hearing the problem that your company solves, and at the same time, I'm wondering there were probably all kinds of impacts. So it's not just the loss or people being afraid of losing their job. There could be another impact in that company, and that the quality goes down. Now we're going to mass produce and we don't have the best people, or we don't have enough people.
That's right.
Or and then, who knows what the long-term trickle effects are on society even, and who's getting that product in the long run. Are we getting a compromised product? And now we've got people let go, and I like to macro and micro.
Yeah, I'm like different.
I'm going for the macro here and looking at the bigger picture and then getting back in.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is that really this can be not only a personally impactful thing for individuals, but also a very widespread impactful thing for many people who end up consuming a product that little do they know could have been compromised somewhere else. I'm not saying the product is compromised. What I'm saying,
Like, I would say maybe the product wouldn't be compromised. However, so it's so interesting. You really get it. Like, yes, like even for those small companies that are like, you've got approval, most don't recognize the day you receive approval, like your shareholders, everyone expects you to, like, you have your website, you have your sales reps trained, you're out into the marketplace educating doctors and hoping to identify your patients that you're looking for, that your medication can actually help. And so who is the right team that you have with you in that moment? And did you plan appropriately the last 18 months of commercialization planning? But then also the inverse of that is you do have a lot of individuals who are now, it's hard to ask someone to leave their job at like a big pharma company to say, come work for ours, even if you believe in the brand, because we all need some safety in work. We need to know that we're going to have a job, that we're going to be able to pay our bills, that that we're going to be able to provide for our families. And so that is what we do. We've now done so many launches. We have our approach when we help small to mid-sized companies really bring their products to market. And then regardless of what's needed, for us, I think the thing that could be compromised when you don't have top talent is really thinking about like, what are the messages a doctor needs to hear to really know who is the right patient for this product? And how do I make sure that I'm identifying them and then also explaining to them how to take the medications? Those are the things that I think are really, they're important for us to really be thinking about as we look at the package insert that comes with the brands.
This is powerful and very insightful for solving a problem that most people didn't probably know it existed until they're at the impact of it in some form or another. How did you end up doing
Here.
in directory? Before we go into some of the other things, like how did this come about?
So in my career, I started in pharma when I was 21, and I was on a lot of different marketing teams. And so in my time as a true employee for a pharmaceutical company, I've made it through 11 rounds of layoffs, mergers, acquisitions. I mean, that's really the name of the game in biotech. There's so much innovation that is happening. You work for a smaller company, you get your asset to the FDA, you get approved, and then you prove a year of commercialization, and then one of the bigger companies will gobble you up, which is the goal. Like, that's really what you want. But as an employee, you're really just a line item on a spreadsheet, right? And you're just hoping that there's a spot for you when you get to the bigger company or that you get the approval. And so after 11 years of doing that, and really loving what I did, like I love to get into the science. I love to work on brands I really believe in, especially I mean, some of these, they're not always life-saving, but they can be life-changing with the medications that we work on. And so in the last round, they had said, we're about to go through. They'd actually offered me a package to move to Boston. And I had said, I love St. Louis. I think I'm going to be here, but I'll consult. And that opened the door for me. So I started consulting. Then I proved to myself I could actually do this virtually. This was before COVID. I did that for a couple of years. And when you're consulting as an N of one, you kind of take everything because you're not sure if it's going to keep coming. That led to a lot of overwhelm, a lot of burnout. I actually landed myself with a panic attack in the ER because I had taken on so much work. And so I actually went back into pharma. I took a full-time role again. And I was like, something's like, we're on the same wheel again, right? And if we get approved, then we're going to get bought. And I don't know if I'm going to have a job. And so then the idea came to me that said, I've proved that this could really happen, that we could do this. And there's just got to be a better way. And so that's where directory came to be. And so now, I mean, I've got some of the most talented, brilliant minds on our team that work across the spectrum of different, whether it's disease states, settings of care, that are bringing products to market every day. And I feel really proud. It has not been easy, but I feel really proud.
That's amazing. So does it end up being almost like a fractional offering that you help companies with? So then you bring the best talent.
Yep.
And there's consistency there without having, and they're their own consultants, they're their own, or with
They're truly employees of ours. We have all of our own insurance, our own culture, our own rules of the way we play. And then, so right now, pharma, the options are you either hire full-time employees, which requires board approval and also like investment. What happens if you have to let them go? There's severance and all of the things. Or you can go to a staffing agency and hire a contractor. But now you're interviewing people, they could leave. Frank, how do you trust somebody with that much responsibility and budgets? Or for us, we're truly a statement of work. If somebody on my team leaves, somebody else has to step in contractually. And so that allows them to really put a lot of trust in us. And as we sit at different boardroom tables, we're starting to see it's similar conversations, but now we can really focus on what's important because we've got the process figured out and we can really think about, okay, what is the condition? Who are the clinicians? Who are the patients? And how do we really like make sure the message is clear?
You are quite literally offering the thing that most high achievers and leaders are looking for, which is confidence. They want confidence
Yes.
in blank. It could be in themselves and whatever they have to do, but then ultimately it's in what needs to happen in the business. And you're providing that with the offering that you have. Really, really powerful. Now,
Thank you.
I want to really do you justice in terms of who you are and what you offer, because I think what people are hearing so far is the entrepreneurial side, the corporate side, the tech, the science, and the medical side, which I love. I could just I could ask you a million questions all day long because I love business, I love science, like all of those things.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if people are watching and have a visual, often this is an auditory, it's a podcast. But if you're seeing this on YouTube, you're going to see in my background, I got boxes because I'm just moving. In your background, you have a curated, beautiful, white shelved position, which looks somewhat feminine and professional and business-like at one sense. And then at the same sense, you've got also a stuffed teddy bear with a heart and love in the background and some awards. And so I'm giving this picture because it speaks to so much more about you in the other things that you've endeavored to do, that you've initiated. And I'm going to make the leap here and suggest that I can only imagine that because of what you've lived and learned, that you've then been able to see some of the gaps that are happening in business, in companies, in leadership. And some of that comes down to the connections that people need, the empathy, there's a line that you said, I'm trying to remember what it was, but I will find it. And it's basically about, instead of empathy being, it's becoming operational instead of just
A
this
nice to have.
night. Yeah, exactly. Like make empathy, compassion, and operation thing. And the thing is that most people don't know is that the research is there. You look at researchers like Kristen Neff, you look at researchers who have done the work on vulnerability. Brene Brown would be a name that many people recognize, maybe Kristen Neff as well. Other researchers have done the psychological or emotional research, and it's there. But often business isn't looking in that realm. They're looking at KPIs and metrics in different topics. So they just don't know how well-founded this is. So tell me a little more. I might have just
Yeah. No, it's so great. The way you pull it together, I'm like, yes, because it is, I think when anyone looks at my life or the things that I work on, they're like, how does this all fit together? But it actually does come from my own experiences, my own lived experiences, and my approach to business in general. Which is why I have the glitter love sign behind me. I like to be feminine at work. I'm known for my different colored shoes that I wear. They're bright, they're everywhere. But I'm also a very serious businesswoman with, we've been recognized twice on the Inc. 5000 list. And I think that has been the thing for me. When I built my company, I knew I wanted my employees to feel human and not just hired, because I knew what it felt like to be on the other side of that, waiting to see, am I going to have a job? I hope I did well enough that somebody is paying attention to me. But even when, it's just business and things happen and they do have to have layoffs, there's a way in which you do that. And there's a way in which you can communicate to your teams. There's also a way in which you manage your culture, from the policies that you have to the things that you're asking them to do. For example, for us, we had a document called Moments That Matter, and I painstakingly went through and we outlined every single moment that matters in terms of our meetings, our all hands meetings, our one-on-ones, our staff meetings, when we get together. Those are moments that matter in our business. And one of ours is the one-on-ones. It's mandatory. It's not optional. In corporate, that was always the first meeting that got canceled. And I truly believe that signals to your direct report, hey, I've got other things to do, or do you really need this week? And that's the moment that you have a time to pulse check with them of how are they doing? What was something awesome that happened last week? What was something that was really annoying that happened last week? And you might find they needed a new computer and that changed the game for them. Or you might find that they have their daughter's game on Thursday night and this isn't a crazy week. So maybe you let them leave a little early to go catch that. And then you can really ask your teams in the seasons that are hard, right? When we have FDA approvals, we're working 80-hour weeks. There's a lot happening. But in the seasons where it's not, summertime is a slower time for us. We really care for our employees. We care for our team. And I've always just really believed, I've always said we're not a family, we're like a team. And I attribute it to an NFL team where it's there's 53 men who have to, it's really hard to win a team, but everyone has a job, everyone has a role. Whoever's there practicing, whoever, they're the ones who get the moments under the lights. And the same in corporate, where the best way to demotivate a top performer is to let a low performer continue on. And so I say all of that to say, like, you can care about your teams and you can be human with them and you can be vulnerable with them and you can check in with them and you can create safety nets and protocols that allow you the opportunity to do that. And you can ask for really incredible results. And, for us, we have an empathy driven culture, but we're also made 5,000 list twice, which is really hard to make
Yeah. Yeah.
possible.
Yes, possible. And I love how you are describing an empathy-based culture and then in the same sentence asking for high performance results, asking for driven results. And that's where I think a lot of people struggle with that dichotomy. They feel like empathy means soft or empathy means just coddling or empathy means, and it doesn't.
It
It does.
doesn't.
Empathy can be in that high performance culture. It can literally be that, hey, I see you, like this has been an 80-hour work week and we've got this. And I can see how committed you are and you are amazing. And we're getting through this together. That's empathy, which is also wrapped in encouragement, wrapped in reassurance that I've got your back as well. It's still empathy and that will drive people and fuel people so much more than cracking the whip behind them, where they're just simply being drained further when they're already in a challenging situation.
Yeah.
And this is a thing that so many people don't understand in business in that, and I have a background in entrepreneurship, solopreneurship, consulting, and in high performance sport. And what people don't understand is that, yeah, you could whip and push things forward.
Yeah.
When you understand a human being, that's not what fuels them. That's not what fills them. It's what drains them. And a high performing environment is already draining enough as it is.
Yes.
Not being continually supported or filled, it's just going to be depleting in the long run. So you have viscerally experienced it, lived it, learned it, offered it, recreated it. So such a great example.
And we do it through, that really goes into like, it's not even just like in my moments that matter in communication. Like we have an in-house performance coach and she speaks a lot to acknowledgments, to things like I would send one of my executives a note and I would just get like, okay. Or I would send an email and I wouldn't get anything back. And I'd be like, hey, I need you to respond to me and say like, I'm on it. And here's what I'm going to do next. Because one, we might not be aligned. Two, I need just acknowledgement that you have my note and it didn't go into like the black hole. And his response was like, yeah, but I'm an executive. Like if you send me an email, you should just trust that I got it. And I'm like, no, these are the things, right? There's the human part of acknowledgement. And also as we build and scale teams, when you have more junior people like on your team, they also need that acknowledgement. They also need that curiosity. They also need you to expose your thinking so they can learn from you. And those are the things that I get really passionate about in terms of communication, in terms of like how our teams work together. And I know it sounds like, oh, we've got these documents, but it's really just about like thinking about what that other person on the other end is feeling and how they're showing up. And there's always this disconnect between managers and direct reports with the managers, like, but the team's just not proactively doing these things. And the team's like, I don't want to say something stupid in front of my boss and like look like an idiot, right? There's that in between. So then who can be the vulnerable one first to like pull it out of each other? And just communication is just so important.
Yeah, without the baggage of feeling like, why did I have to do this? Or resentment or feeling it's just becomes more of a matter of fact. This is how we roll. And we'll each be doing this. So
But if you communicate and help them understand, then they're in it with you. They want to be a part of it. They want to be a part of the solve. There's so many benefits in that. And I would also say, like, because I know you had mentioned there's like CEOs and leaders that listen to your podcast as well. That's where moving into my book, I think even compassionate policies like pet bereavement leave is an important policy for me. I wrote a book about it. I went on a national tour talking about it, where it's also just in everything that you do, you're thinking about the workforce that you have within your organization and what are the things that matter to them. And for us here in America, 8 out of 10 American homes have animals. Many of them consider them part of their family. And so for something that doesn't happen too often, but that does happen, it can actually cause a world of hurt. I've experienced it myself losing my dog. Um, I needed that time off. And that I think is a black and white way to signal to your employees like, hey, I see you. I see what your family structure is. And in this time of grief, like we're going to be there for you.
Okay, this is really, really interesting. I'm gonna point to a quick story in a second, but I want to back up because when it comes to the communication that you started with, if people can't communicate, there's no way they're going to get to a point where someone else understands how meaningful a pet is or their family or a certain trip to a grandparent or whatever. They're never going to get to that stage. If we back up for just a second on the communication side of things, I'm curious to know your experience around the generational differences and the differences between men and women, so gender differences.
Yeah.
What can you just offer before we go into, because if that communication part isn't there,
Yeah.
there's no way someone's going to make the leap of going, um, if they've never had a conversation about their animal in the workplace,
Yeah.
they're never going to be able to make the ask for the
Yeah.
meant. So if you back up for just a second, tell us the difference between age, that generational differences, the gender.
Yeah.
What do you see there?
I mean, I would say those of us who are in leadership roles today I mean, we've lived through a lot in our professional careers, and I think we've even lived through very much cultures of like just suck it up and figure it out and do those things. And I think this newer generation and I think actually every generation pushes the previous one to think about things a little differently. And it might feel hard at the beginning, but there's some truth in both, right? And I believe this new generation it's a different world for them. It's hard for them to communicate even verbally because they grew up on their phones. They grew up with social. They weren't out playing in the world. They were more technology based. And so they might even be better at writing than communicating verbally, where you have leaders now who are better at communicating verbally, but also didn't share a lot at work. And so that's the part where we focus a lot in communication around being brave enough to say something to the other first, right? To be able to ask, like, how was your weekend or what's going on in your life and not make it like a checking off a list, like
Yeah.
really actually caring and having sincerity behind it, which is why it was so important in my moments that matter that the one-on-ones happened because you can't always have those moments at the beginning of status calls or at the beginning of other meetings right. You still have to get through all of the work things that in that one-on-one, you have a real opportunity to spend time together to understand what's going on in their lives, what's important to them, what do they like. We even have budgets for our managers around buying presents for when somebody moves or when they get a promotion or what's their birthday or their work anniversary. Like, again, it's that human experience of creating a moment and a memory around something that is meaningful or a milestone, whether professionally or personally. We blend in the two. I do think it's harder for men, and I think you have to be really brave as a man to do that. I know my leadership team, God, I love them. Like they went there with me, and you could tell it was uncomfortable. And there have been times where like I have cried on a call with them. And at the beginning they were like, "Wait, what is happening?" And it's just this idea of like accepting each other for who we are, which that doesn't happen all the time, right? Like for me, I also emotional regulation matters, the way we show up for each other matters. But there is a difference, I think, for sure in the two, but I do believe both can meet each other in the middle. It's not about changing who you are. It's about like inching enough closer where you've met a middle ground.
Yeah, I love how you've indicated that it's inching closer because and research shows this, that that's how trust is built. It's in small actions, small actions, small actions, small actions, small actions. And then when there's something major that happens,
Yeah.
quite literally, it's built upon all this solid platform is built on all these thin strips of paper. And then
Yes.
it's just this solid thing that people can can count on, because it's been inch by inch. It's been moment by moment. It's been action by action, acknowledgement by acknowledgement.
And it's also like play. Like I think so with my nonprofit Tiny Superheroes, which I know we'll go there later, but I've really been understanding harnessing the power of play. And I didn't realize how much I did this at Directory with our work. I mean, we send out different holidays, we'll send out boxes to our employees, or when we have our annual meetings, we schedule a half day where we're actually leaving and going to do something together, whether it's glass blowing or zip lining, or people get to pick their stuff. But the idea is, can you create moments of play and laughter within your teams? And again, it's just creating those human experiential moments. Because when you start to laugh with somebody, that also creates trust. And so now you've got trust from the one-on-ones, you've got trust from shared memories together, you have trust that you've done a project well together. And when you have trust like that, that's when you build innovation. And innovation is what every company wants.
Yes, yes. And that's where creativity lives.
Yes.
Lives in that space of safety, psychological safety, emotional safety. That's where people can get creative. If there is a ton of pressure all of the time, then there's not innovation, there's not creativity. It's a stressful environment. The brain will not flourish in that environment. So that's very powerful. And when you go into, so tell us about Tiny Heroes, because this is, it's all congruence here. It's all, I think it's people would see, I think some people would see these as very separate boxes, but they're very tied because of how one impacts another. So
Yeah.
So tell us about Tiny Superheroes.
Tiny Superheroes is a company that's been around for 11 years. They were always focused in mindset for children, and these are for children who are going through a tough clinical journey ahead of them, whether it is cancer or they have a rare condition, but they're in and out of the hospitals. And so what we do is we actually help them feel like superheroes. So they get a little cape that they actually get to wear, and then they earn badges for every clinical milestone. So every x-ray, every MRI scan, every chemo treatment, they earn a badge to show how strong and brave that they were. But it boils down to play equals safety for kids. And so if a child is about to go into an MRI scan and their parent says to them, I'm going to be right outside. It's only 45 minutes. It's not even going to hurt, but I'm going to see you as soon as it's done. That feels very different than you're about to go on a mission. We're going to get your cape on. You're going to be really strong and be really brave. And then afterwards, you're going to earn your badge. And they're like, oh, okay. And we're at yeah. And it's been incredible to see. Hospitals are reporting that kids are not having to be sedated for MRI scans anymore. They're more compliant to therapy. They're proud of their scars. They're proud of the journey that they've been on. Because a lot of these kids aren't in school. They're not getting to play on sports teams. So this way they get to feel like they belong to a superhero squad. And I think that idea of like play equals safety, I mean, it is just at the core of who we are. I think we just kind of forget about it as we get older and life gets busy. But laughter is medicine. And, I found out about them a couple of years ago. Last year, they came to me and said, we're going to have to end the mission. It was always for a for-profit company. Parents were having to buy the capes and the badges. And so they're like, we just knew you loved it. And for me, I had just felt like the last 20 years, I've been launching drugs into hospitals. So I felt uniquely qualified that I could, instead of vials, focus on smile, but still have a clinical impact. And so I converted it into a nonprofit. And now we are on a mission to transform hospital culture into superhero culture.
Oh my gosh. I absolutely love that. Smiles, not vials. Like turning it into a superhero culture. Like, and the other thing is fundamentally it's changing the narrative around.
Yeah.
Kids can be emotionally, psychologically, physically scarred from a serious illness and come out of it either with shame or come out of it with that kind of baggage going into the world. And you completely, this is something that can change the narrative to have kids feel amazing about themselves with how much they were able to manage or go through with supports, and then come into the world when they've overcome this and to literally have a positive impact on the rest of the world instead of living with the scars that come from that. So really, really powerful and great vision and initiative to be able to go, okay, this thing's about to shut down.
Yep.
Let's let's change, let's tweak, let's look at what the vision can be for this to
Yeah.
okay, maybe it's more appropriate as a nonprofit instead of a for-profit.
Yeah.
How does this work? And with the way you've described the vision, I am sure there are so many people just who are associated with or working within hospitals who
Yeah.
would go, okay, yeah, we need more of that. We need,
It's been pretty awesome. I mean, I really thought it was about the kids, like that they were going to get the big, like the moment for them, that it was going to be a lifetime impact for them to feel, to go out into the world feeling differently than how they did. I mean, what you said is so true. We've got some of our superheroes, they have colostomy bags that are with them for the rest of their life, but now they're like, oh, that's what gives me my superpowers. Like they're on playgrounds talking about something where it's literally, you know, something that maybe you would have been ashamed to talk about, but now the kids are asking them, these are my superpowers, the things around me. Like we're teaching kids to not be whispering about each other, but actually to be really curious about what are the things that makes them a superhero, our tiny superheroes. And then the parents are like, gosh, you've just given us a lighter way to talk about things that are heavy.
yes,
Because this type of topic can become very heavy. The way I give updates to my family is heavy. My friends, right? Like unless you're in it, it's hard to really be there. And then for the hospitals, they're like, "You've made my job fun again. Like, I don't have to pin a child down." Like, there's something that happens to a child when you've gamified something for them where they're like, "I know it's gonna hurt, or I'm gonna be really strong, I'm gonna be really brave. Like, go ahead and do the IB," because they're excited. They're wearing their cape. Something happens when they wear their cape. And even for like superhero culture is just so easily understood. When you see a child wearing a cape in a hospital, it doesn't matter if you are a patient coming in, a janitor, a receptionist, a doctor, like you immediately like, you're like, "Oh my god, is that a superhero? Like, you're so strong, you're so brave," when maybe it would have been hard to know what exactly do you say to a child with cancer when you see them.
yeah,
And
yes.
now you're excited and they feel important and they feel special.
Yes, and that's in an environment that is typically fairly sterile and hierarchical,
Yep,
and and so it and most of the people who are in that environment that can be sterile,
yep,
rank based, they didn't go into that for the sterility or the rank
right.
necessarily. Most of them went into that for a service based part. So it really pulls a lot of things together, which is powerful, very, very powerful. It's not the win-win, it's the win-win-win and
Yeah,
the greater impact, the greater legacy that can come from
yeah.
that.
We're
Um,
all coming back to human moments and really thinking about what does culture mean and how do you create systems that support that, or how do you create opportunities that can become moments?
yes. It's you've mentioned this as human moments, and at the same time, what you're describing and what you're doing in what you've created in multiple zones has to do with more than humanity in a lot of ways. It has to do with a wholeness that is greater than individual humans, greater than humans as a collective, but rather there's our interconnection with each other and our interconnection with creatures around us as well. You
Yes.
mentioned the pet bereavement, which
Yep.
points to how important you feel that animals are in people's lives, what
Yep.
that means to people. And, there's some missings here that I can imagine came from your own experiences in that, okay, how can we fill some of these missings where humans have often had missings
Yep.
and build it with the natural healing that comes from nature, that comes from animals, that comes from play, that comes from interconnection. So you this is a visceral thing that you understand,
Yeah.
and these are concrete actions and systems that then get operationally put in place so that, okay, how can we be more whole as beings that interact with the entire world, not just in this company, in this role, in this system, but how can we really make this work for the bigger picture? That's what I'm hearing, and that brings it into the yes, pets are family, in that if anyone has had a pet that is meaningful to them, and this is the story I was going to bring in, is that someone said the other day their animal, the dog got sick, and this was a a CEO type who was literally like, yeah, if that dog dies, then, we need, no, we need to, my family will be crushed, but I can't wait for not to have as much of the responsibility. And he had a friend who the friend had the same sentiment. And then he happened to be talking to the friend, and they had joked about this same thing, and the friend's dog had died. And so the man joked and said, "Oh, well, at least that's off your plate now." And the other friend lost it, like sobbing, like, I floored at how important that animal was to him and his family. And this had the original friend, I don't know if I'm telling this very well, but had the original friend actually realizing how much more important, and, he was kind of joking about it.
Yeah.
The point here is that especially men who don't fully understand the importance of some of the soft skills, the empathy, the compassion, and don't understand necessarily how much it fills and fills the voids of drain.
Yeah.
That that is, it's there. It's not just, oh, my child is upset because we lost our cat or something like that. It is that these creatures fill a um a biological need in humans to get, and they connect with us more than many humans know how to connect with us. So tell us more about
Yeah.
that, because I've just kind of pulled some of the things I've learned from you and offered that story, but tell us more.
Yeah. Animals shape our identities. I call myself a dog mom. They shape our spending habits. Sometimes they shape where we live. Like for us, our first house, we're like, we have to have a yard for animals. And that's also published data of that more people are doing the same. My husband and I chose not to have human kids. Our dogs are our kids. They have vet appointments. We take care of them. We have to feed them. They rely on us. But truly, I think that the human animal bond is well studied now in terms of how both of our brains light up, how we both release serotonin, how we truly are bonded together. And for us, we lost Kingston 2 years ago, and I've always had pet bereavement as part of my corporate policy. But actually taking the time off, I didn't realize the shame I would feel around it. Like to actually say, I'm really not okay, and it's because I lost my dog, and I would start to qualify, like, I know it's not like your family member, it's not a human, or it's not a but then when you're met with things like, "Oh, it's just a dog, get another one," like, it just started to realize, like, the pain was so great, and it was actually the greatest pain I'd have ever felt. My dog was my first real unconditional love, right? Unlike human beings, there's never a bad memory. It's not conditional. My dad left when we were young. My mom struggled a lot with mental health. I grew up in a really challenging childhood. And so Kingston for me was just like, gosh, he was my little golden nugget. And it really hurt to lose him. And I think that's why I was so inspired to write my book, because being able to take the time off, I felt so lucky that I own my own company, that I have my own policies, and my employees can take them. But I felt a responsibility to advocate for others to have access to a leave like this, because you're not okay. And even as a not okay person, it was hard to be vulnerable enough to say that as somebody who advocates for being vulnerable, for saying that you're not okay. And to just, gosh, if somebody says to you, like, I'm not okay, can we just believe them? Like,
Mhm.
even if you don't understand, like, can we just believe them? And as an employer, I felt a unique way of going after it, because I learned the CDC reports it's $200 billion is what it cost American companies every year in unmanaged grief. So there's an economic benefit to wanting to offer something like this. But also just the employee recognition of saying we understand your full family structure includes your animals. I mean, some of them even sleep in our beds. Like, how do you get closer than that? Like, it's not an uncle, an aunt, a cousin. It's like it's truly a little being who everywhere you look in your home, there are reminders of them. And I think that was something else the U.S. Surgeon General said. The loneliness epidemic we are in today is as bad as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And what do animals help combat? Loneliness. Like they're your companion, they're with you.
This is really powerful, and I think it speaks to not just our connection with other creatures and the world, but also our unfulfilled need for connection
Connection.
that didn't come in our lives is there, and if we weren't taught unconditional love in our households or in our families from our parents,
Yeah.
those of us who learn it from animals, it's a profound impact, because then you can literally heal dysfunction from an animal, not from the people who did it to you, not from the therapist, not
Yeah.
you can literally heal unmet needs or dysfunction or traumas from an animal, which is not something that would be readily acknowledged in the corporate world. It's like, huh. And yet there's all this research that shows grief, loneliness, and there's a huge cost on society. It's impactful across the board, not just in business, not just in home lives. It's just society in general is huge.
Yeah.
On that note, I have a background in, um, this is the human algorithm, and it's about leadership and ethics in AI.
Mhm.
One of the big concerns is that we've got people who are now leaning on AI for the bestie relationship, for the mentor, um, for the technological support as well. What do you think is going to happen with the environment that we're in now with AI?
I get really excited about what AI can do for us as a society, how smart it makes us, the cures we're able to find, the problems we're able to solve. But I do believe now more than ever do all leaders have to really start paying attention to HI, human intelligence, and human emotion and being human beings. And we have to lean into that more, because the more isolated our as individuals we become. We just mentioned earlier, we have the US Surgeon General saying we have a loneliness epidemic. We really do. The more connected we are on social media, but the lonelier we feel at home. Like, after COVID, it's been more acceptable to work from home. My company is fully virtual, so we take a lot of time and effort and intention in how do we make our teams feel connected on Slack, how we communicate in our Slack channels, how we're a cameras on company, so you have to be seeing each other because you miss the human cues of somebody might just be thinking, or they're having their forehead is crinkling because they're confused about something. Like, these are things that the more disconnected we get in terms of no cameras, or we're on our phone, or we're typing or texting versus talking, or we're spending time together, that can really get away from us. And I don't know, I just feel the more isolated human beings get, I think the suicide rate is going to go up, the more loneliness people get to be. And we should all be really, really keen on focusing on that, of how do we bring back our human connection.
I love this perspective, because I haven't heard anyone um, be all pro one thing or all another,
Mhm.
because of the people that I tend to talk to.
Mhm.
However, the concern that is there is great, because we already before, I mean, AI had been around since the 50s, but before its upsurgence in the last 3 years, which is exponentially advancing faster than we can even comprehend,
Yes.
that before that, we already have a disconnection issue amongst ourselves. And um, I feel like AI ends up becoming not just an enhancer like money could be, perhaps, but a massive magnifier. And I think that, like you've said, the human intelligence, which is why we call this the human algorithm, I think is so important. And I think it's the key things that you're focusing on, how you're focusing on the cultures in workplaces, how you're operating your own company day in and day out, how you're looking at something like tiny superheroes that can have a greater impact, how you're actually writing something that's a book that can quite literally just give people the words around animals, pets, and how our connection is, and make it normalized instead of like you said, the shame that you felt if when you actually took the action to follow through on something you believed in. Why do I feel shame around doing something that's aligned for me? What the heck? Why? Because it's a normal thing to go, that's not professional enough, or that's not this enough, or that's not that enough. And yet I'm doing something that's congruent with who I am and what I believe. And yet, wow, this is interesting. That's how pervasive our lives are in society.
Yeah.
I think that we could go on for another two I know. So like seriously, because I feel like we're scratching the surface in each and everything. I really want to pull it into a wrap up here on some of the, if you've had a best piece of advice to you, but if you took a piece of advice you'd want to give to your past self or give to people who are struggling with something or maybe in an earlier decade than yourself, what piece of advice would you give knowing what you know now?
Hmm. I think overall it is this all matters. And everyone talks about these are the soft skills, communication, caring, being vulnerable, but these are actually like the hardest things that you have to do. They require the most amount of bravery and like courageousness to do them. And I would say be brave, do the thing, and don't wait for it to come. If you are in a leadership role, you have a responsibility to do that for your team. And if you are not, and you are entry level, if you just started a company, you're still a leader, right? You still have a responsibility to show up and to manage up to. So I would just say for it's on all of us to do it and to take the chance. And you actually might be surprised with what it leads to when you do.
I love that. I love that. I love that it's on all of us. I love that it's the greatest courage. I love how you framed this. It's so good. And I really believe that's true. And that's great, great advice. Okay. So if for people to reach you, you've got your book, which is amazing. We want to make sure that people have that. Yes, pets are family, but to reach you, we've
Yeah.
got your website, erikasinner.org.
Mhm.
And you've got Instagram, so you're on there at just Erika_Sinner.
Yeah.
And then also you're on LinkedIn. So just your name, Erika Sinner. So you're on all those main platforms. People
Yeah.
can find you there. They can find your book and your company's directory. So, and Tiny Superheroes you will be involved with for probably ever. So I hope people reach out. I am so grateful to have you on. I think this is such a powerful way of pulling together business, life, what it really means to be human. And thank you for sharing that with us because your presence is just magical. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome.